Now, you know what's funny about this pairing, you guys, is that if Levy were to make 3 GM norms here, by based off of what Jan was saying about Mishra, Jan should be very angry, because if we look at this field, there's a GM Panchathon who's 2500. There's Mark Paragwa's a GM 2477. That's 2 GMs. I think those are the only GMs in the field, if I'm not mistaken, and they're under 2500. Like, they might not be 2400, but they're under 2500, and it's kind of funny when you look at that. FIDE likely to make it harder to become a Grandmaster, but will it be enough? Okay. The FIDE Management Board is currently looking at proposals for tightening Grandmaster norm criteria. It is part of a larger debate that followed upon Abhimanyu Mishra becoming the youngest GM in history by playing a series of round-robin tournaments in Budapest, Hungary. Mishra became a Grandmaster on June 30th of this year when he was 12 years, 4 months, and 25 days old. In doing so, he broke GM Sergei Karyakin's 18-year-old record. The Grandmaster title, the highest title in chess apart from the world champion, is the highest title in chess apart from world champion, and is granted for life by the International Chess Federation FIDE. Although the term was used before, it reached an official status in 1950 when FIDE awarded it to 27 players. In 1970, Grandmaster norms were tied to norms and the ELO rating system, which was introduced shortly before. These days, players are eligible for the title when they reach an ELO rating of 2500 and play at Grandmaster level over a series of 27 games. Okay, seems normal. In practice, this usually comes down to achieving GM norms, i.e. a performance rating of over 2600 in 3 9-round FIDE tournaments. In those 3 tournaments, several of the opponents must be from federations, countries other than their own, and also be titled. In 1979, FIDE had changed the norms from a 2550 performance to 2600. When rating inflation seemed to become quite apparent, raising the norm to 2625 or 2650 was considered in the 1980s, but the then FIDE president Florencio Campomanes wanted a GM in every country, so the norm didn't change. Okay, all right. They wanted a GM in every country. Okay, all right. Okay, Twitter debacle. Oh god, here we go. Twitter debacle. The way Mishra earned his GM title led to a discussion of which some prominent figures were part. Spending several months in Budapest, the teenager from New Jersey played 6 tournaments in a row in the same playing hall, often against the same players and often against Grandmasters rated under 2500. None other than World Championship challenger GM Jan Nepomniachtchi lit the fire of the debate with a tweet on the same day Mishra made the title. He referred to the level of Mishra's Grandmaster opponents and the fact that all norms were scored in closed tournaments. Jan's tweet: I'm dazzled with the new record, so I'd like to suggest some changes to the order of conferring titles. For example, one of the norms must be fulfilled in an open tournament, and the participation of 2400 GM luminaries in stamping new titles should be finally limited. Okay. Mishra's Twitter account, which is most likely handled by his father, Hemant Mishra, replied with the following tweet. At Jan, thanks, I'm a very positive guy and would take that as a compliment to dazzle world champion challenger. On a lighter note, it would have made more sense to suggest these awesome suggestions when you were approaching your GM title. Okay. The English there is actually quite sketchy, I have to say. Very, very sketchy there in that second tweet, especially. Chess professional Leonard Utz thereupon did some research where he compared the results of both Nepomniachtchi and Mishra for the events where they became a Grandmaster. Mishra followed a legal path to earning the Grandmaster title during a time of pandemic with few options for tournaments to choose from, but his list of opponents in Budapest seemed weaker than usual. The data showed that the average rating of Mishra's opponents was 2390, while 2513 for Nepomniachtchi, and that of the 10 Grandmasters he played, 5 were rated 2437 or lower. All right, okay. So then there's this whole long list of Grandmasters for Jan and Mishra for their respective GM norms. Nepomniachtchi made his norms in Viscount AC, European Championships, and World Youth Stars. Mishra made his norms in GM norm tournaments in Budapest. All right. Yeah, so there's this whole long list. I mean, I won't go through it. And then we see, okay, then we see, okay, let's keep going. On the other end of the spectrum was GM Magnus Carlsen, who reacted as follows to Mishra's achievement. It's a pretty nice achievement, I would say, especially considering that he went to Hungary to play basically non-stop for a couple of months to get his norms. I could see on the one hand that gives you a better chance to get the norms, but it also means that these tournaments are practically organized for you to achieve this particular aim, so it also puts a lot of pressure on you. I'm really impressed that he achieved this feat. Okay. New York Times. 2 weeks later, the New York Times jumped on the story with a piece dramatically titled "The Dark Side of Chess: Playoffs, Points, and 12-Year-Old Grandmasters." Before mentioning the Mishra story, this article mainly focused on how the earlier record by Karyakin was established. Karyakin became a Grandmaster in August 2002 at the Great Silk Road Tournament in Sudak, Crimea. According to the testimonies of some participants, this event saw a number of irregularities. The New York Times article is largely based on an open letter from 2006 by Vasily Malinin, the tournament winner in 2002, who passed away in November 2020. Malinin, who was a doctor of law and member of the Russian Academy of Sciences, stated in his letter that his regular tournament game with Karyakin had ended in a draw, but was then replayed after the tournament was over. Karyakin had missed out on his third GM norm by half a point due to an unexpected draw in the final round with Irina Semyonova. In the replay, which was reportedly a blitz game, Karyakin beat Malinin. The full point was counted in the final standings, and Karyakin became the youngest ever Grandmaster, aged 12 years and 7 months. All of my tournaments always replay their games too. WTF? Exactly, you guys. Yeah, if you don't get the result you want, let's replay it, right? Yeah, I need to remember that next time, you guys. Next time that I have a bad game against Magnus or Wesley, let's just say I lose a game to one of them. I'm gonna demand that we have a replay of the game. Okay. All right. Let's keep going. Okay. The Ukrainian IM Anatoly Polivanov, another participant, gave a somewhat different account in a book about the infamous Sudak tournament, which he published in 2016. He wrote about the initial game between Malinin and Karyakin. The game was not played as scheduled and was postponed. It was rumored that Malinin was not ready to play because of a swimming accident, ears filled with water. However, I think that both participants decided to take a pause and see the standings at the finish of the tournament. If the draw would be okay for both, why bother? Near the finish, when it seemed that both would get their norms, a draw appeared in the cross table. But that was not the end of the story. Okay. According to Malinin, Karyakin's father had approached several players to whom his son had lost points and offered them money to replay their games. Karyakin denied this to the New York Times, saying that it was Malinin who had tried to extort money from his family for simply playing a game that they'd agreed to postpone, not replay. The newspaper also spoke to GM Alexander Eroshenko, who played in the Sudak tournament as well and was slightly higher rated than Karyakin at the time. He could not do it honestly, Eroshenko was quoted. I played better than him at the time, and it was tough for me to become a Grandmaster then. Okay. Speaking to chess.com, Eroshenko said he was not impressed by the New York Times reporting. In our interview, the journalist asked me if Karyakin was happy. I answered naturally. Then they asked me if he was as happy as a peacock. I answered very happily. And then the article ascribes to me the words after the game, Karyakin left the hall happy and proud as a peacock. Okay. All right. Okay, this gets better and better. Wow. Okay. According to Eroshenko, the New York Times wrongly sends a message that the Sudak tournament was organized to provide a norm to Karyakin. This is wrong, said Eroshenko. The main beneficiary of the tournament was Malinin. That was the guy whose real level was about 2300 and who decided to become a GM. Malinin had a higher rating at the time of the tournament, but I saw his games and understood he did not get that rating in a fair way. Okay. Wow. All right. Empathy Road. Nice t-shirt. All right. FIDE proposals. In a response to the debate, the FIDE Qualification Commission invited representatives, FIDE officials, and other interested parties to attend 2 open meetings discussing proposals to change FIDE's rating and title regulations. The meeting was held on July 19th and 21st, 2021. Alex Holochak, the secretary of the commission, kindly sent a summary of the 3 main proposals that came out of these meetings. The proposals had been sent to the FIDE Management Board, or the proposals have been sent to the FIDE Management Board, and from there they will go to the FIDE Council for final approval. An exact timeline isn't clear at the moment. The next meeting of the Management Board hasn't been scheduled yet. The 3 proposals. Okay. The 3 proposals. Let's see. Number 1, any title application containing a norm not achieved before June 30th, 2022 must include at least 1 norm from an individual Swiss tournament, with every round containing at least 40 participants whose average rating is at least 2,000. For this purpose, players will be counted only if they miss at most 1 round, excluding pairing allocated buys. Okay. Okay, that seems fairly normal. This proposal is similar to what Nepomniachtchi suggested. According to Holochek, it is an attempt to respect the round robin format, which is still an extremely common format for chess tournaments, and the vast majority of which arouse no suspicion at all, while also including a more sizable tournament as part of the overall title application. Okay, fair enough. Number 2, reports must include a PGN file. For Swiss and team tournaments, this should at least contain those games played by the players who achieve title results. For other tournaments, all games will be required. Okay, this one's a little bit weird. I don't understand this proposal will make life easier for the qualification commission and the fair play commission to investigate events that are under suspicion of irregularities. It should be noted that although the submission of the PGM will be mandatory, there will be a pragmatic relaxation for Swisses and team tournaments, which tend to be rather large. Okay, that's I mean, this should already be mandatory. I don't know why this is some kind of big deal to begin with, because this should already be part of it. So this one is not shocking. Okay. Number 3, in tournaments with predetermined pairings, a norm must be based on all scheduled rounds. Holochek explains in, let's say, an 11-round Swiss, if you get your norms after 9 rounds, the norm is banked, for want of a better expression, to avoid people withdrawing from the tournament, or in the case of a team tournament, refusing to make themselves available for selection to protect their norm. Previously, in a round robin with 12 players, a player was able to bank their norm after round 9 if they achieved it, in the same way as they could in other types of tournaments. There were allegations in some tournaments that the drawing of lots would be manipulated so that a norm seeker might get precisely the opponents they needed in rounds 1 to 9, and then the rounds 10 and 11 games didn't matter. It was thought that in a round robin there is an expectation, sometimes even a contractual obligation, that the players would play in all of the games. The aim of this proposal is to remove any allegations of abuse in the drawing of lots. All right. When I look at these proposals, the second one and the third one make no sense, in the sense that there are already things that I first of all, I don't believe tournaments are organized like this with like predetermined pairings. I mean, I've never seen it in my entire life. I mean, I've seen people agree to certain results, but I've never seen a tournament with where it's like predetermined that you're gonna, the order of the opponents is like in a certain order. This just, to me, I don't understand this at all, because I've literally never heard of a situation like this, so it's very weird. Third one. Second one seems completely obvious. I don't know why this isn't already an issue. And then the first one, I guess, is like I mean, I guess you have to get a norm from a Swiss tournament, which kind of makes sense, but it also doesn't seem all that shocking. So I don't really get the point of these proposals. Like, it feels like it's just kind of random. Levy's tournament has predetermined pairings. That's true. No, it does, but like, it's predetermined, but that doesn't mean that there's like any collusion. I've seen yeah, of course you do a drawing of lots the night before, and then you have a predetermined list, but I've never seen a situation where it's like, okay, you would play this person in round 9 specifically, because that would require everybody colluding in the entire tournament for that to happen. So that's what I'm saying. All right. Why is it called a Swiss tournament? A Swiss tournament is just an open tournament with like 100 players. Tournament like the World Open or anything like that, where you don't just play 10 set players, you play like 100 players. So yeah. All right. Will it be enough? Short term, it seems impossible to fully eradicate what we continue to call irregularities at tournaments. For instance, it is virtually impossible to prevent players from agreeing to a draw or even a decisive result for that matter, and having access to such a game in a PGN will be easy to handle, as players can simply make up their moves and agree on playing those beforehand. This author hereby admits having done so once in an official tournament. One game I played with a good friend at Hugavane 2006 was fabricated from start to finish. We simply didn't feel like playing each other. We decided to add a funny twist by repeating Mamedyarov Topalov, which had been played in the same venue just days before, and improve on move 35. We were hoping to one day find a book that would write, here Topalov errs, better is 35 rook takes c8, as in Dogger's Woot. Okay. Yeah. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say to that. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say to that. I mean, anyway. Yeah, I don't know what I'm supposed to say to that. That's very bizarre. Very bizarre. All right. I mean, it's just very bizarre. I don't even know what I'm supposed to say. All right, let's keep going. Okay, whereas this example is rather innocent, as it was played at a lower board with no other players really being affected, it is well known that prearranged games continue to happen and have an impact on the final standings and distributed prize money at tournaments. Carlsen's second GM, Peter Heine Nielsen, admitted in once doing so. 20 years ago on this day, I was offered and accepted a pre-game draw proposal by Emil Satovsky, as it would mean we shared first in the North Sea Cup. FIDE is turning a blind eye to prearranged draws, which indeed it is hard to fight efficiently, but shouldn't be part of our game. All right. Oh, no is right. So basically, for people who want the context, Emil Satovsky is currently the vice director or vice general or whatever it's called of FIDE, and he's been like very negative about many things. He's been negative about online chess. He's been negative about draws that have been agreed to very early on, and that's just for the start. That's just for starters. And so like when Magnus and I specifically made a draw, and of course this was not prearranged, but when we made our draw on the Bond Cloud, Emil was like, what a disgrace to chess, none of this should happen. And here he goes basically saying these things when he's done significantly worse. So I mean, maybe he should just shut up. All right, let's keep going. Next up, we have Eroshenko told chess.com that at the Sudak tournament in 2002 he was involved with prearranged draws in 2 games. One of those was with Malinin. I was told to make a draw, but I was ambitious and did not like it. So at first I refused, but then was persuaded and even got some money. I told the New York Times that I do not remember exactly, but it seems to me that there was something. That was my sin. Eroshenko also agreed to a draw with Karyakin before the game. He explains, we both studied at the same chess school in Kramatorsk, so to refuse was not an option. It was a command from the above. I played black in that game, and Karyakin was a strong opponent, so a draw was okay. I was a bit stronger. I defeated Karyakin in our previous games and did not really want to make a draw, but okay. While speaking to chess.com, Eroshenko several times referenced Paul Ivanov's 2016 book about the tournament and confirms that it is fairly accurate, such as that the Malinin-Eroshenko game, a 10-move draw according to the database, was drawn before other players entered the playing hall. Paul Ivanov's description of Malinin's game with GM Gennady Kuzmin is similar. Same as the game versus Karyakin, it was not played in time. We saw only the score sheets with a 22-move miniature at the arbiters table. Nobody knew how and when it was played. All right. Eroshenko also confirms Paul Ivanov's records of the Karyakin Malinin game, saying, in the tournament table, the result of the game between Malinin and Karyakin was a draw, but I didn't see them play this game. The draw was the same as the draw between me and Malinin. After the game with Semyonova and Karyakin's failure to fulfill the norm, he and Malinin allegedly finished playing the game. In general, this was of course pure fiction. Nobody finishes a game after the final round. Also, these games are not played in 10 minutes, and I will repeat once again, by the moment that result in the cross table was a draw, and everyone knew about it. All of this is perfectly described in Paul Ivanov's book. That would be a fun book to read if someone could translate it. I'm kind of curious what that would be like. Someone should translate that. That would probably be that would at least like be a bestseller or something. All right. Although the New York Times focused on Sudak's tournament, although the New York Times focus on the Sudak tournament feels unnecessarily amplified, and the paper seems to suggest that Karyakin wouldn't have become a top grandmaster if he hadn't made his norm there, they rightly address the issue that it is possible to manipulate results in chess, perhaps easier than in other sports. In fact, many players don't see a problem with it. Eroshenko, a draw agreement before the game is something that exists in chess at all levels. Back in 2002, there was no such thing as Sophia rules. It is not even considered unethical. Among the games that Misha played in Budapest were a 5-move draw and a 13-move draw with the same GM, Gabor Nagy. These need not to have been prearranged. That's not the issue here. Doing something against the mere possibility of fixing games is the biggest challenge FIDE has if it wants to work towards cleaner titles in the future. All right. Yeah, long article, obviously, but what I would say is that in general, I mean, the system is what it is, and I would say until there is more, I want to say unless there's like more money in these sorts of tournaments, it's not going to change. And thinking that it will change because you make it maybe marginally harder really won't do a lot. So I think, I mean, either you just kind of get rid of titles is one way to do it, or like or I don't know, you have to find some sort of, I want to say, like monetary incentive for it not to happen. Those are really the only two ways that I can see things changing. That's all I would say. Plain and simple. That's what I would say. All right. So okay, so that was a fun article. Let's go back to the chess for a little bit. Let's pull up the game, change the scene, put some music back on, and keep rolling along. What should a realistic goal for Levy be in this event? I mean, probably just try to gain rating points. I mean, I know Levy's done a lot of videos saying that he, that he's going to become a GM, or he thinks he should become a GM. I don't think that should be his mindset at all. I think that he should just be focusing on gaining rating points objectively, because he's not GM strength at the present moment. So I mean, I think he needs to solidify it, gain some points, build up some confidence, and then have those ambitions. But I think at the moment trying to expect that is not realistic. But he can do both at the same time. That's just not how it works. If you're 2350, you don't go from 2350 to 2500 overnight. That's just not how it works, you guys. I mean, I mean, you can say that I'm saying that to be negative, but I'm not. It's just the truth. I mean, you have to understand that, like, when you play a lot of chess. Oh, Naroditsky literally said the same thing as me. Well, I mean, it's true. Like, if you build up the confidence, you slowly gain rating points, then you get there. But you don't go overnight from being a 2350 player to being a 2500 GM level. It's just, I mean, and Daniel, of course, he's been through the whole grind as well. Like, he knows just as well as I do. That's not how it works. Well, I said earlier his aim should be get norms, not rating points. Well, but the thing is, I don't understand. I mean, I'm a little bit confused as to what Levy's playing for. That's the thing. Like, you have to pick one or the other. Oh, he said it'll be a journey. Okay. But yeah, I mean, there are people who have done it, by the way. There are people who have gone from like FIDE master to Grandmaster in the past. Like Andrei Estepenko, he did not become Andrei Estepenko skipped over international master. I think Larry Christensen, the American Grandmaster, skipped over international master as well, went from like FIDE master to Grandmaster. But it's very, very unusual. You said he should go for broke and not draw the first game like 20 minutes ago. Well, like I said, I don't know what the goal is. Levy has said that Levy has put out videos saying he's going to become a GM. So like when you do, if that's the actual mentality that Levy has, then he should go for broke. If that's his honest mindset. But I don't know if that's actually his mindset. Is 2500 the minimum rating to become a GM? Yeah, you have to have that ELO rating to get there. Yeah, you have to have that. Was I an FM? Yeah, I was a FIDE master many years ago. I was FIDE master, I think when I was 11 years old, if I remember correctly. I became a FIDE master very shortly after I became a master. So yeah, FM Hikaru doesn't sound right. Yeah. That's what are norms? Are they different? No, they're the same for each player. So for example, let me see if I can pull up the okay, so if we look at this field, here's how I'd look at it. I don't know the exact pairing order, but let's see. Levy has to play 1, 2, 3, 4. He has to play Andrew Hong, Justin Wang, Nicholas Theodorou, Thomas Roussel-Rosemont. And then he has to play 8 and 9. He has to play Casa Corley and Wang Tong Qi. Now, you know what's funny about this pairing, you guys, is that if Levy were to make 3 GM norms here, based off of what Jan was saying about Mishra, Jan should be very angry, because if we look at this field, there's a GM Panchithanan who's 2500, and who are the other GMs? There's Mark Paragua's a GM, 2477. That's 2 GMs. I think those are the only GMs in the field, if I'm not mistaken, and they're under 2500. Like, they might not be 2400, but they're under 2500. And it's kind of funny when you look at that. But I would say if I look at this field, for Levy, if he was trying to make it norm, I don't know the color, so obviously I can't like speak to that. But I think what he needs to do to have a chance, he needs a draw against Magesh, who's a very strong GM. He would need to draw against Theodorou, 2569, also very strong. And probably if he can draw those 2 games, then you just go for broke against everybody else. But I think you really need those 2 draws. I'm looking at a graph where Nock went from 700 to 2000 in 3 years. Yeah, I went from 0 to basically 2200 in 3 years. I became a master at 10 years and like 30 days, and I started playing rated tournaments when I was like 7 years old. So it was about 3 years. Levy drew 2 games already. Yeah, he did. What are my realistic goals for the Grand Swiss tournament? My goals for the Grand Swiss tournament that I'm playing in October are pretty simple. Just win, baby. That's it.